Releasing and offloading doesn't mean that your body is not going to do. It just means you're releasing the burden of having to figure out how. And so I think the end point of where you release to, like the feeling that you release into, is a super critical sort of shift right here to make and to experiment, so you can experience how it happens. So when you offload, you really want to be offloading into it's being taken care of. And that means that if there's anything to do, I'll know what to do in the moment. I'll know whether or not I need to be doing anything physically. I'll know that I know. There's no figuring out. There's no intellectual gymnastics of trying to figure out how. There will just be the flow of being, which will translate maybe to doing. So it's like you're releasing into the feeling of all is moving perfectly and into the perfect outcome. We each have different stories in different areas of our life. And this is what's so interesting about this process is you'll find yourself surfacing stories in work that weren't necessarily existent in relationships, vice versa. And so this is why it's so important to go out into the world and apply this, not just sit and do this for 5 minutes every morning. Be aware, be observant as you go about your day, as you find these stories come up and offload, because it's in the world, actually, taking care of your responsibilities, quote unquote, in the world where these true stories come to the surface. And these are often where you'll find the most liberation, because these are the stories that you're building up your daily experience around. It's fun to experiment with this, when you're sitting there at the beginning of a project with maybe blank canvas syndrome, and just to sit there and let it go and just get into the feeling of flow, and it's being taken care of and it's being channeled through you, and watch what happens to your creative output when you get yourself into that state. To summarize, offloading is not giving up responsibility. I think a great way to look at it is actually the opposite. You're becoming more responsible by offloading, because you're allowing the infinite to shine through. What you know intellectually is only a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of the infinite intelligence that you're connected to, like Michael was saying earlier about us all being connected to the same energy, the same consciousness. And by getting your stories out of the way, you're able to show up in the world with a greater sense of responsibility to everyone that you interact with, including yourself.